Fantastic gains coming through for the resource space as a whole, with the resource 20 up almost 2.5%. JSE All Share around 1.5% firmer in today's session. And on the currency front, we're seeing perhaps currency markets battling to find some form of direction.
Yes, certainly. I think, when we speak about currency, there's still that emerging market, risk premium that they're pricing in because of the issues in Egypt. But yes, the JSE is up quite nicely today, mainly on the back of industrials and resources. They're really pushing up our markets. But yeah, a very, very good start to the day. Yesterday, the United States, as you mentioned earlier, the manufacturing data there was stellar. So therefore, that was a follow through into our markets, as well as the Chinese manufacturing data and our local manufacturing data. So it's been a very, very good start, very strong start for the South African market, as well as the US futures are also trading up quite a bit. So I think it's going to carry on for the rest of the day.
And Ntombenhle, also just taking a look at the commodity side of things, we're seeing coal prices being buoyed once again by new weather patterns that have hit Australia's Queensland area. We're looking at a cyclone there, so still a big issue when it comes to coal output from those big miners. Tell us about the mining space right now. We know that the likes of BHP Billiton and Anglo American are not only benefiting from the renewed confidence in the overall commodity space, but also because of the weather issues that we've been seeing.
Yes, I think that we read reports earlier that ships have been put out to sea, and certain mines for Billiton have been closed off there in Australia, in the east coast of Australia. And I think Queensland is the biggest producer of coking coal, so it's it's a major effect for the miners there. And I think going forward, we will be watching that weather pattern very, very closely to see the impact and the loss of production that would result from there. So yes, a very dire situation there.
And so, Ntombenhle, let's touch on the construction industry. It's one thing after the other. I mean, we're hearing of the Competition Commission's probe into possible price fixing. We know that the construction industry over the last couple of sessions has been under significant pressure when it comes to its share price. What are we looking at today? Is it still one of the big laggards?
No, actually today it's come back a little bit, so perhaps we're seeing a type of bottoming out until further news come out. Murray's and Group 5, I think, asked for leniency, which I think the market is very, very suspect of and not sure. What does that imply? What does this leniency mean? Are they taking guilt? Are they guilty of something? And, what will the findings be after the investigation? And I think following from Murray's awful trading update last week, Friday, I think it's just a follow-through for that sector, and there seems to be a lot of problems there.
Ntombenhle, let's shift gears, looking at Vodacom, expected to come out with its third quarter update. A company that has been performing relatively well in today's session. What are we expecting on this front? And, many are talking about the telecoms industry. It has been one of the favorites over the past few months. Do you think it's going to remain under the spotlight into 2011?
Absolutely. I think there's high expectations, considering they're up about 2.4% today. Very high expectations on their trading update that's coming out. But I think also, we want to see, is there growth in the stock? Are there growth opportunities and growth potential in the stock? So how will they compete with their peers? For instance, MTN has got a major presence in Africa. Will Vodacom also then follow suit, and how will they compete there? Their data side of things, which seems to be the only open space really for telecoms to go into at the moment. How will they compete there? So it's a lot of expectations that have been put on there, but seemingly the market is expecting good news only to come out of Vodacom. But if you look at its performance for the past 6 months, it really has been very much in line with what MTN has done, and it has actually worked just as hard as its peers.
And so, Ntombenhle, looking at the copper price, as I mentioned, a record level hit earlier, $9,980 a ton, and overall industrial metals looking very strong. Even the likes of platinum. Yes, Brent crude is down slightly, but it's still at $101 a barrel. And we've seen this kind of rise on commodities before until China comes in and hikes rates. There is a lot of concern that could happen this week. Do you think that this lovely rally that we've seen, particularly out of the resources, might be short-lived?
You know, there's a big possibility of that. Perhaps not this week because China is on holiday, but you know there is a possibility of that. But you know, we believe that the high copper prices that we're seeing at the moment is really based on the manufacturing and production numbers out of the United States and China, and it's also based on the fact that global demand is really increasing. So you know, and oil really, I think that's more of the Egyptian crisis issue. Perhaps some you know fears there seeping into that price that is hit nearly to $102 per barrel today. So you know, I think there's a lot going on there that could influence all the commodities and the resource sector in overall. And you know, from the growth and demand side, you know, things are looking good, but there's also risk premiums to be built in, and that's why we've seen some commodities such as oil going up quite a bit.
Well, it's interesting, Ntombenhle, that you mentioned the Egyptian issues that we've seen, and perhaps the regional issues that have also come to the fore. It seems that this is what's pushing the oil price higher, but on the other end, it seems that most investors on a global level are perhaps, you know, not ignoring the situation, but perhaps looking to the good economic data that we've seen as opposed to focusing on the bad news. And usually it's the opposite way around, because most enjoy focusing on the bad news. What impact is it going to have overall on the emerging market space, would you say?
Yeah, I think, you know, the Egyptian crisis certainly has shone a spotlight on the emerging markets, and we saw our currencies reacting, as we mentioned earlier. And I think what now is going to happen, why there's been a turnaround in sentiment, is because they've said that the Egyptian leader Mubarak will actually step down in November or towards Q3 when the elections happen, and will not run. So therefore, you know, I think the markets have perceived that as an issue that is somewhat solved, and they can focus on other things.
Ntombenhle, also lastly, ending off, we had the vehicle sales number out for the month of January. Year on year, we saw an increase of 18.6%. And, you know, looking at the December figure, obviously we had a really strong December month as well. It's also quite interesting to note when you look at the credit extension numbers that were released earlier this week, it's not being really reflected the fact that we have been seeing, you know, better than expected vehicle sales numbers coming to the fore, but private sector extension numbers not really that buoyant.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot going on there. I think why we're seeing a strong vehicle sales number is because the low interest rate environment has really helped quite a lot. I mean, that kind of thing is even translated to stocks like Imperial, where we saw a great trading update from them today. You know, and I think, sorry, that happened last night, but, you know, great trading updates that has translated through. And I think mainly, you know, if you look at December's vehicle sales numbers, you know, there was very high base. 2010 was a very high base for vehicle sales, so they have come down significantly from last year, but you know, it's still a very strong result based on really on the low interest rate environment, and based on the fact that there's growth in the sector and growth in the South African economy that's starting to seep through.